Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Table Talk, which is conversations around food, about food, but not recipes, because I am not qualified to do that kind of show, uh, because I have essentially been just a learner the last year or two and someone who just improvises a lot but has like zero fundas. So I'm not going to ever try and do a show that teaches people how to cook. But I do have a guest today who's been doing that for like 15 years now, uh, sharing recipes, sharing knowledge, talking about food in a variety of media, including from her blogs when I first encountered her, and then social media in later years, YouTube, Instagram, all of those kind of things, and books as well. So please welcome Nandita Iyer. Hi, Nandita.
Hello, Peter. Nice joining you on Table Talk finally, uh, and looking forward to talking to you.
Uh, because I sometimes forget this, I ask guests to choose a cause or a fundraiser that
Yeah,
they support uh, as a way of saying thank you to present our speakers, our guests. So you've chosen a uniform, a fundraiser that buys uniforms for underprivileged kids. Would you like to just tell us a bit about that?
yeah, sure. So thanks for featuring a charity in our talk. Um, in Karnataka, the schools have just started opening, and there's I live in Whitefield in Bangalore, and there's this you can call it an NGO called Whitefield Rising, and they take on a lot of community causes, including things like roads, sanitation, schools, government schools in the vicinity, etc. And there's this whole Back to School campaign 2021, which is currently going on, and we are collecting funds for school uniforms for around. I'm just checking the exact details to cover 1,200 students in four schools, four government schools in the neighborhood. See, typically, the government issues one school uniform per kid, and even that, because of the COVID scenario, and the schools suddenly decided to open up, that whole organizing those uniforms has not yet happened. And many kids either don't have uniforms or they wear very torn uniforms to school. And so we thought, okay, I think each kid should have at least two pairs, so we're organizing one pair and hoping that the government issued one comes through quickly. So each one costs 700 rupees, and it's quite good quality, and it's assured to last 2 to 3 years. And then typically they even pass it on to their siblings if or somebody else if they outgrow it. So this really touching thing that I read, which was a part of the write up for the campaign, was that beyond removing a significant barrier to education, uniforms legitimize a student and instill a sense of pride and put all children on a level playing field. And as our kids, even I have a son who's going back to school from tomorrow after 17 months of being at home. I just felt touched by that, and I felt like, yeah, the children need to have at least one good pair of uniform. And there's a deadline of 26th October for this whole campaign, so it was very timely to make this a part of our talk when you asked.
So, folks, I am pasting a link into the fundraiser. And if any of you have the funds to spare, and if you'd like to say thank you to Nandita for this table talk, please consider making a donation to this drive to collect funds for uniforms. Uh, like with everything with table talk, this is not mandatory. It's a gesture that if you can afford it, it would be nice. It does not affect whether I will continue to do table talk or our guest will continue to talk with us. We hope that you will support it. So, Nandita, I thought we just start by asking you about your earliest food memories. For most of us in India and in most parts of the world, these are connected with our mothers, our grandmothers, uh, not so much usually the male members of our families. But what were your earliest food memories?
Um, as a child, I was never much into food. I would just eat what was, made at home. And I was brought up by my grandparents, and we lived in Bombay, different parts of Bombay. But growing up, I was first in South Bombay, then we moved to the South Indian bastion, Matunga, Vadala, and King Circle area. So all through, I was with my grandparents, and they would grandmother would make typical Tamil vegetarian food at home, and the meal times were like very sacrosanct. They wouldn't budge a minute here or there, and we would just sit together and eat our food. And like there was the rule that whatever is made, you have to eat that, and you can always have extra servings if you like it, but you can't waste what is served to you. And I think as a child, I wasn't much of a rebel or anything. I would just go with whatever was served. And of course, I had a couple of things that I totally disliked. And my grandmother would make me concession for that and make me something else, like bitter gourd and brinjals. Uh, just two things. I was okay with eating anything else. And typically lunch was served because my grandfather used to do this puja and stuff, and then have his lunch early and go to office. And so his lunch was around 9:30 in the morning. And if I was at home, then our lunchtime would be, and later on when he retired, our lunchtime would be around 11:30 in the morning, and no breakfast as such. And then 4 o'clock would be the interesting different time, like you would get some idli or dosa or anything, upma or anything that's made at home. And those days I would like tell my grandmother that when I grow up, I'm going to completely stop eating idli and dosa because you make so much of this. It's so boring to eat this so regularly. And like now I wish if I could get those kind of fresh idlis and someone made a nice hot dosa for me, I'd give my arm and leg for that. But
Mm.
that's how it is when you have something too often as a kid, you don't have the value for that, and you just feel like this is all so boring. And as we grow up, we turn into our own mothers and grandmothers and liking the same old stuff that they liked. uh, so, yeah, so the food at home was very basic Tamil vegetarian food, uh, and we hardly ate out much. I would go out once in a while with my mom and dad to like the same 2 3 restaurants in Bombay. We weren't much of the eating out. That culture wasn't there. I don't think, like, I'm a 70s kid. I don't think in those days, like a middle class family, nobody had that much spare money to even eat out regularly. And even like for whatever health reasons or hygiene reasons, like people were generally wanting to eat at home. And the other thing that was crossing my mind while I was talking about all that, and I forgot right now. Yeah, my aunt, my mother's sister, who also, because I stayed with my grandparents, I lived with my aunts also. And she was the only one who used to experiment a bit with food. Like she used to read the magazines and, note down or cut the recipes and try it out. And things like making cake in the pressure cooker,
Mhm.
or putting leftover sabji into bread and frying that, which I even I dream about it today and I go wow, because it was so good. And it was such a good change from the regular sambar and rice and stuff. So I remember that very fondly. And so she was the one who, gave me a little bit of a change from what the usual thing at home was. And like special birthday food and all that, she would make sure that I get something different. So, in a nutshell, these are my food memories. And to be honest, I wasn't much into the kitchen, and I wasn't like crazy about eating this or that and like having special requests and all that. I would just go with what was made. But I did learn a couple of things from my grandmother early on, like the simple potato sabji, aloo curry, and things like making a dosa and stuff. I learned that from her early on, but besides that, I would not bother entering the kitchen at all. Had too many other interests, and already my grandmother was there. My three aunts were there at home, so they would just shoo me off anytime I even came close to the kitchen. So that's my these are the things I remember offhand about my childhood and food.
Yeah, that brought up so much because it's only after reading your blog and all that that I actually realized that we do share a Bombay childhood.
Yeah.
And I grew up in Chembur. We moved when I moved to Chembur when I was about 10. And so much of that, I do remember, while my family wasn't Tamil, there was a neighborhood was many Tamil people. So one got things like you go and sit on the floor in a friend's house and a dosa would magically appear in front of you. And
Yeah.
the idea of going out to eat being such a rarity, you
Yeah.
know, if you went with mom to help her with the shopping, you may get a vada out of that,
Yes.
that kind of thing for holding the bag. But
Agree.
and occasionally, very occasionally, a soft drink as well.
Yes.
Those were not good things. I mean, to this day, I don't particularly like soft drinks because I just never had them as a kid.
Same here.
Most of the fizzy stuff, though, I just you know, didn't like it very much because one just didn't encounter it. Uh, but talking about learning how to cook, how did that go? You mentioned that you started learning at that point.
Yeah. So, like I said, I knew a few things, and even anytime I showed some interest and I said I want to make something, I would promptly be asked to observe and not do anything. They said, like, seeing is learning. That used to be my grandmother's mantra, and she would not let me touch anything or do anything and said, you just observe how I'm doing this. This is half of learning, which is actually true if you look at it, because now so many people are just observing YouTube videos and stuff and learning how to cook. Even when learning music, like 50% of it is listening to music. Especially, I'm talking about the vocals. So, observing, learning, listening, these are an important aspect of learning any skill. And my grandmother followed this to the T. So, I never got a chance to cook anything. Like once in a while, when I was bored of that regular idli dosa for tiffin, and just those days, the Maggie thing was coming in. Like, I don't know how they managed it, but they would come and introduce it to us in school and all that. Like maybe my school got a good good pay from the brand to come and promote this in school. So that's how we came to know about it. And I would say sometimes I want to make this, and which was fine. They didn't disallow me from making that. So these were the few things I would make at home. Like I'm talking about this when I was 11 or 12. Um, these are the few things that I could make. And then because I was always interested in music, I was interested in arts, and I was also doing well in my studies. So I would voluntarily sit and study a lot. So it's just that even at home they would say don't waste time hanging around in the kitchen. You read a book or you practice your music or do something. And which is why I grew up pretty much not knowing to cook anything. I hardly cooked in the kitchen. I would know what goes in what, etc., but that's never enough when you actually start standing in front of the gas and you wonder what am I going to do now. uh, my first actual experience with cooking was in my medical college internship, where we were posted to a rural place in Maharashtra. And that was like in the pretty much in the middle of nowhere. And the food that they were supplying to us was extremely spicy and just watery. Like 99% of everything was just water. Was not palatable at all. And I can handle anything, but I can't handle spice. So I said, this, I'm not going to survive eating this food. I can't eat this food. And that's when there were 3, 4 other interns from some other colleges. I didn't know them. We were all put together in one room, and they seemed to know good stuff. Like they knew how to make sabzis and stuff. And that I remember feeling a bit of an inferiority complex. Like, what the hell? I don't know anything. And these people are like saying, I would tell them, I'll do your extra night duty or whatever. Just don't put me in charge of cooking. Because I would feel embarrassed, like let alone, cooking for myself. How do I end up cooking for four other people, and how are they going to eat what I cook? Because I didn't know much at all. And I think the first real, experience and brush with cooking happened when after I got married and I went off to US for a year. And the kitchens there come equipped with an oven and everything is there. And then this was in 2004, 2005. And you go to the supermarket, it's like a wonderland. And of course, in today's times, you see all that in our cities as well. But in the 2004, 2005, it was not so. Like, even going from Bombay to that place felt like, wow, this is like, I don't know what to buy. There is so much of everything. And also the problem of too much choice, not knowing what to pick up. So, and this 24-hour really fun food channel called what's called the Food Network.
Yeah.
So I was hooked to watching, and I didn't have a job there, though I had a work visa, but I didn't get anything that I could do worthwhile in the city that we stayed in. So I used to watch this, just like, oh my god, there's a 24-hour food channel and it seems like fun, and I started watching. And that really and because that was the first time I had this much free time in my life. I was always, like, ever since high school, studying hard, and then college. Of course, medical college is brutal. You don't get like one free minute to do anything. And all that put together, finally, when I had this free time and I had an oven and I had access to ingredients, I had this 24-hour food channel. And I started experimenting stuff in the cooking and everything. And luckily my husband wasn't one of those like, okay, this has to be this way and that has to be perfect and all. He would eat anything I made. So you always need some guinea pig like that, otherwise it can be very discouraging when you start cooking in your early days. And like, if someone keeps telling you this is not good, you just give up. So that was my first brush with cooking. And when we came back to India in end of 2005, the I was just thinking, I'm not going to miss this country, but I'm going to miss this 24-hour food channel, because there was no such food content in India at that time. Like, maybe one odd cook, like Sanjeev Kapoor show used to come here and there, and that's about it. There was nothing else interesting happening. So I said, I'm going to miss this so much. And I would keep checking if online am I able to get access to some of their recipes and all that. And which is when we came back to Bombay. Then I started, I was cooking. I never had a cook in my life. So I always used to cook 3 meals a day. And then I said, like, okay, I'm doing too much intuitive cooking. I need to keep a record of things somewhere, because I'll not know how to repeat the same dish tomorrow, because I'm just throwing something, this and that. And if it turns out good, I want to be able to make it again, which is why I started my blog in 2006. And I thought, I'm just going to keep this as a digital diary, because I'm notorious for losing paper and stuff. So I said, it's not going to get lost. I can search it easily, and if some friends want or something, I can share the link always. So it just felt like the most practical thing to do. And I was reasonably tech savvy. And of course, it was Blogger, which really needs no tech savviness. It's just, if you know to type something on the or like type on the browser blogger.com, that's good enough. And that's how I got started. And I had no plans, and I didn't know whether I am going to stay interested in cooking, or whether I'm going to go deeper into this. I had no clue. It was just like very with the flow, which is how I do everything. I don't think too much about anything. And somehow it's just that the blogging also made me more interested in the food, because I felt like I want to try this and I want to post it on my blog. And it just became like one feeding the other, like the blog feeding my cooking habit and my cooking habit feeding the blog. And it just got more and more interested. And at this time I was also working in healthcare advertising parallelly. And this gave me another avenue to explore some other creative things, like taking photographs, or writing just in a way that I want to write, without any other constraints. Just write, publish, right? So it's the easiest way to just express yourselves instantly, with no barriers. And So that started in 2006, and I was very surprised that I continued to stay interested for a very long time. And although right now, because of I'm writing in so many different places, I'm finding it difficult to also create content for my blog. But I do try to post things like once in a while. And so it's been now 2006 to now, right? 16 years, 15 years. I'm very bad at this thing. So 15, 16 years, I've managed to keep it afloat. And then each of the social media platforms started. And then, we joined that just to provide, like, where we can share our work with more audience. And then it's just that. And then you keep adapting your content creation to different uh, platforms and audiences, etc. And somehow that whole circle continues.
Mhm.
Sorry if I rambled along. I don't know what. I don't know where to edit.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, that's cool. I want to come back to the blogging bit and what it's taught you, but I just want to take a little time before that to just look at your uh, the time you spent in medicine. Formally, I mean, getting into medical school is hard. Going through medical school, as you said, was brutal, right? I have friends who are doctors, and I know what they went through. Uh, the entire deal, and you put in all that effort into qualifying as a doctor. But you've never practiced as a doctor, have you?
I have. So, not practiced as in not private practice, but I have worked in a hospital. And, uh, like the way I told you, I usually go with the flow and I don't think so much before taking a decision. And I just go with what feels right to me at that point of time. And I think life also took me through such a journey where these decisions just happen spontaneously. And you're very right. And I get asked this a lot, and people tend to ask this more of people who've studied medicine, but not those who've done engineering. They could have gone to IIT and then IIM, and then they're doing some startup of garments, or it could be anything. But they don't ask them, hey, you wasted 5 years in IIT and then in IIM, and then you're doing something totally random and different. But uh, especially for someone who studied medicine, almost like the society feels like, you owe it to them to
Hmm.
answer why are you not practicing medicine. uh, I think I was always more interested in the arts, and be it writing, be it music, be it poetry, or drawing, painting, etc. That was my whole childhood. But like I said, 70s kid, and if you're good and if you're always a school topper, in my times, if someone took arts, they would say, like, you didn't get admission anywhere else, is that why you took arts? And if I had taken arts, I don't think my family would have, like, even allowed me after getting whatever 95, 96 percentage. Why on earth would you go for arts? That was the first thing, right? So you just go with, you don't really go through those aptitude tests and whatever. If you got good enough marks to get a seat without paying a donation or something, you just go for the best available thing. It could be like medicine is always like the top thing. Then is, of course, engineering, and then the other things follow later, or maybe like dentistry and other things, right, in the science stream especially. And if you're studying commerce, then you do a CA, or there's such set patterns that used to be there. And I'm so happy as a parent right now that kids just don't have to, like, think along these very jaded set things to study in life. They can just do anything under the sun that they want, and it's still okay. So I think going into medicine was not like a very well thought out decision whether it's good for me or not. I had good marks and I got an admission, so I just joined medicine. And it's not that I didn't like it or I wasn't good at it. I enjoyed it a lot, and it was, the first MBBS, or like the first 1.5 years in medicine. uh, you just grow so much as a person. Your vocabulary increases like by 500% with all new and literally the language, you learn a new language, because none of the medical terms are terms that a regular person would know, right? You just speak in a different language. Um, Especially for someone like me who comes from a very protective, very, I won't say orthodox, but very simple, like not very outgoing and that kind of family. It's just like throwing you straight into the ocean without even knowing to swim. And the first MBBS is something like that. It is it's a complete culture shock, and it's a completely like slapping you out of your consciousness kind of thing. At least for me it was that way, because also many kids have parents who are in medicine, and that's why they join medicine. But I have had nobody in my family who's studied medicine. I was literally the first person from my family going to a medical college. To give you an example, day one of medical college, you get like some 10-minute orientation. Okay, these are the subjects. This is this. This is that. And they said, okay, now get going into the anatomy first. Get going into the dissection room. The minute you enter the room, your eyes are smarting from the formalin fumes,
Yeah.
and you see rows and rows of naked cadavers, naked dead bodies, and you are 17. And imagine, and it's not like we were watching Netflix and all in our days. We have not seen anything that kind of stuff in our lives. And you're also like 50 girls and 50 boys. You're facing this whole thing, and imagine that moment and that situation. It's an unforgettable thing. I can even recall that how my eyes were watering from that smell, and just that initial shock, because nobody prepares you very gently. That's all in today's very woke times, that teachers are caring. And I don't know still today what happens in medical college, but at least I see in my son's school and all, teachers are very supportive, caring, understanding. They guide you through every step. But no, here we're just thrown straight into that room, and then okay, now this starts your medical college. So you face steps like these, one after the other. And like, that's why I'm saying that within 1 year you just become a totally different, hardened person, because you have to experience certain things so suddenly, which you've never seen. And I'd still say at 17 you're still a child. You're not like a fully grown adult. So it just so that was the start of the experience. And yeah, I went through medical college pretty okay. I didn't find it too tough, or although it leaves you with no time to pursue music or any other things that you like. You just have to focus on your studies a lot. And the worst thing that happened to me was that someone who's always been a school topper and always done well in my studies, I got hit at the worst time where, I should not have got hit, which is my final year MBBS. I was declared fail. So that was like the biggest shock to me, because I had not done badly in any subject. I was not expecting any distinctions and stuff, but I was definitely not expecting to fail. And literally my all my classmates were shocked, like, how can you be declared fail? And obviously I did, there's this thing called the revaluation, where you give your papers back and ask them to check it properly. And Mumbai University, being Mumbai University, took like 5-6 months and no response. They just took their own speed. I thought I'll pitch a tent in the university and I'll sit on that guy's head and like find out where are my papers, what's going on here. Because you know giving the exam again, it's the toughest thing, especially the entire syllabus. If it's 1500 marks, I was declared fail in medicine, which is 500 marks. I had to literally study one third of the whole syllabus of final MBBS all over again. And medicine itself has many other sub subjects, like psychiatry, and different things that you have to, pediatrics. So I was like completely like, how am I going to do this all over again? And it was it was like the first failure of my life, and at the worst point that I could ever experience it. And I was just not prepared for that. And I just didn't know how to deal with it. And so like there was probably 1 month left for the next exam, like the re-exam. And I said, looks like this university is not going to come back with my result until then. So I have to start studying. So I pulled out all my books again and I started. And but by then I had made at least like 50 trips to the university. Everybody knew my face, they knew my name. So one day before the exam, I have my hall ticket, I have everything ready. That guy calls me and tells me that, look, you are passed. Your entire one entire subject was not corrected. So now you're passed, and I'm not posting this result, because which will mean you'll have to go and sit in the exam again, because this post will take God knows how long. And so you come right now, and I'll give this to you, and you won't have to give the exam tomorrow. And that literally felt like I didn't know whether I should hate this guy or love this guy, because one, why did you guys take so long? It was such a torture. And now that, thank God you didn't put it in the post, because who knows if I'd written it again and actually failed. So this was just like possibly the most terrible experience of my life. And what happens is, like, you are a good student and you are having that competitive spirit. You have your study group, you have your, you have the group of friends with whom you discuss, okay, this is a good case, this is a good, this is what we have to study more, etc. And suddenly I'm all alone. And in internship, what happens is, after the final MBBS, you get posted in groups. So like one group goes on to medicine, one group is in surgery, one group is in gynac, one group is in the rural internship, etc. And in my case, because I was one lone number who got passed, like 5 6, not even 6 months, like 5 months, I'm in between. I'm neither with the next group, neither am I with the previous group, and I'm allotted everywhere on my own. And suddenly you're a doctor. But it was always good if you had the company of your other classmates to even discuss a case or understand how it's done, right? And here I'm all alone to figure out my schedule, and seeing a patient or something. And that was very lonely, and it was very scary. uh, so that kind of took away some of the excitement of actually passing, graduating, becoming a doctor. So I didn't have that full measure of how I would have felt if I had passed in the right time with the rest of them.
Okay.
And for no fault of mine, right? It was just bad luck that like entire, say, pediatrics is 50 marks, and they don't even look at those papers. So I've straight away lost 50 marks there. So it was so terrible. And so then when I started my internship, etc., then I talked about the rural internship. I did go through everything, but like, my spirit was down, and I felt like, what am I doing all by myself? And then after I finished my internship, etc., got my degree, and then I started working in an ICU. Also there, I don't know why, but straight putting a student out of college and out of internship into an ICU, it's crazy, because we haven't seen those kind of patients, and we still so young. What like I think maybe I was 22 or 21 or 22 maybe. And to be able to understand all these things in its full, uh, you know uh, from different angles and all, still too young for that. And and as luck would have it, I was thinking maybe I should study postgrad or something, but the only thing I was interested in was surgery and nothing else. And it's always going to be a tough one to because we didn't have entrance exams, so our exams, it would be based on our marks, etc., and then already declared fail and coming in late and everything. I didn't see much potential. I said, okay, let's see what's happening, let me work for a bit, and get a hang of what I'm actually liking to before I do my postgrad. And I was in was working in a hospital in Thane. I won't take names, but a major politician died in the ICU. No fault of mine. And major riots. We were locked up in the hospital. All of us who were working in the ICU. The hospital was set on fire. The power was shut down, and here we have patients on ventilators and all kinds of machinery, and
Mm.
there's no power. So it was traumatic, to say the least. And I had driven down there on that day. That was a weekend, so I said, okay, today I won't like have to take autos and stuff. I'll take the car. Car was burned down because they burned down all the cars, which was so in the morning the police rescued us and took us out to our homes, and I saw just the skeleton of the car which was sitting there. And so yeah, so the hospital shut down after that, and I was very, very traumatized to go back to a hospital. Like I was shaken up to my core, and like it was literally life and death. I don't know, just escaped somehow. And and then I thought, like, I can't do this. If I'm going to get beaten up or burnt for being a doctor, I can't possibly be in this scenario. Which is why even today, when I read these things on Twitter about doctors getting beaten up, etc., I get very triggered, and I just remember all of that all over again. And I thought I need to take a break from this, and I can't do this anymore. So then I joined another, like, obviously I'm not someone who can ever sit at home and do nothing. So I joined some allied field, like in health insurance, for a couple of years, and I just found that too dry and boring. And I said, this is not happening. I'll go crazy if I sit in this office and, look at files and stuff like that. That's not my game. And then somehow I joined healthcare advertising, and things looked up from there. Then I found, I really enjoyed writing, and but also keeping in touch with the subject, uh, under reading more of medicine and stuff, keeping in touch with the subject, but also doing something creative. And so that was my journey. And I, in fact, now during the second wave, after so many years, I felt like the courage to because there was such a shortage of doctors and everything all over, right? And I actually contacted my relative who works with a big hospital here. I said, I want to volunteer, I don't want to charge, but if I can monitor from home or do whatever, I want to come back into the fray and do this, because I feel like this is war, and I'll feel terrible if I don't offer something because I have the degree. And there were news reports in Hindustan Times where they were saying we'll call back all the Ayurvedic doctors and the Unani doctors to work in the ICU, etc. So then I thought, okay, I, with my proper MBBS degree, I better do something myself and apply for it. But somehow by the time they processed and all that legal whatever they wanted to process, the wave started ebbing, and then they didn't want someone like me anymore. But that's been my journey. And while I think now, if you ask me, yeah, if I had to help somebody, or if I can solve someone's problem, or be a little more communicative and make people understand what their problem is, what the possible solutions are, what is the good thing that they can take, what's the good decision that they can take, uh, I feel like I have a better communication skills and more empathy, which is also useful in being a physician or practicing as a doctor. So I don't know. So right now I'm not practicing, but I saw how this whole COVID thing went, and I felt like I want to get back. And maybe uh, especially being on Twitter, you read so many different kinds of stories where people say this doctor just didn't understand. They didn't give us one moment with our relative to even on a video or something. And it was heartbreaking to read all of it. And I thought maybe I should, I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else, but maybe, someone with more empathy could add a little more value in such situations. But also, I feel in our country, everything is so straight, like in boxes, that you are either just a doctor, then you have to see like 50 patients a day. You can't be a doctor and do something else if you're in a hospital setup. So I'm currently just writing, working on my books. I am doing these things, but this thing just came back to the back of my mind during this whole COVID thing, where people have been thinking of so many, like, retired doctors went back, and so
Yes.
many things happened during that time.
Yeah, it's common. I mean, so many things. Retired doctors, as you said, final year medical students being
Yep.
thrown in, that
Yep.
kind of stuff. It was crazy. Yeah. I was just remembering when you were talking about your university worries and mine. When I finished my college thing, I had my, I remember going to the look at the board to see where I had placed, and I went straight to pass class because I had not really studied very well, right? I didn't find my name in pass class. So then I said, oh fuck, I failed. So I looked for failed and I couldn't find myself there.
Okay.
And then, okay, second class, some fluke has happened. So I went and looked in second class and I couldn't find myself. And then I was like, okay, they could have fucked up things really badly. So I looked at first class and I still couldn't find myself. And then I was completely thinking, I'm going through everything. And then I went to the college office to ask about it. And they said, okay, no, your results have been held back for
Okay.
so reason number so and so.
Weird.
Up reason number so and so, reason number so and so was not appeared for this subject.
Wow.
And I knew, at least as disorganized as I was, that I had at least attended, gone and sat for all the papers, right? So
Right.
I went and checked out, and then I said there was a change in pattern in the subject that I did at the time. Some new subjects, the syllabus had changed. So I was marked as absent for 3 subjects
My
when
God.
I had sat for 3 other subjects, right? And so then I said, okay, this is the same. Here's my hall ticket. Here's the thing. I attended this. And then they looked through the entire thing and they said, okay, fine. 3 months later, I get a thing about 3 months later. No, you're still failed because you have not appeared. And they had checked for three, instead of those 3 subjects that they were supposed to check for, they had checked for another 2 subjects that were completely different. Again, then when I finally got my thing and that I had actually passed, and I went through college and you know went away from, didn't want to study very much, and then I got pushed back into it by a combination of parental threats and a very good counselor. And I'd actually got motivated enough to say, okay, I want to do a master's and all that then. But then I had missed all those things, getting stuff, and God knows, I mean, what would have happened. But I wound up again losing interest and then only recovering my interest again in learning formally in the last maybe 10 or 15 years, with the kind of stuff that you get, free lectures and courses and all of that. But yes, sorry, this is not about me. The how did now you were talking about how your views and how do your medical care, career, empathy, these things, and how they affect and what you could possibly do like it with food especially, and your view as a doctor and the core of what we are talking about today. We keep hearing, of course, about these various fads of do this and you will lose 5 kilos, or you do this to gain so and so, and uh, fats are good for you. I mean, fats are bad for you. Fats are good for you, and all of those things, and it keeps changing. You don't call yourself a nutritionist, but you have studied nutrition and you've gone into it to a far greater degree. Plus, you have a medical degree which informs your view of what we put in our bodies. So let's talk a bit about that. How did medicine inform your view of what we put into our bodies?
Um, Once I started writing a food blog and writing about food and nutrition for many other publications. This was after 2006. I think after I started blogging, I got a lot more opportunities to write as well. And then I thought, maybe I should, because I'm so much into food and I've studied medicine. So I maybe it's a good idea to study formally and get a degree in nutrition as well, which people even in the which I did from Apollo Medvarsity in Hyderabad, and which even those guys were like shocked, like why are you studying nutrition after you're already a doctor? But at least when I was studying medicine in the undergrad, there's absolutely very little knowledge of nutrition or wellness or preventive medicine. We had a subject called Preventive and Social Medicine, PSM, and which was everyone's most hated subject. They made it as dry and boring as ever, and nobody would be interested. But all the time during COVID, I was thinking like that subject had so much relevance around the disease and like prevention and everything. It was all about prevention, right? That there's so much messaging around that. Um, but yeah, coming back to nutrition, there was not much talk about it at all, and we weren't taught. Like using food as medicine doesn't even exist in the toolbox of doctors, and especially like what do you say, the allopathic stream. I can't comment on the others because I haven't studied and I don't know what they are doing much. But yeah, so having very negligible, very like minimal knowledge of it. So I thought, okay, let me study and let me get a better understanding of this, which is when I studied this course. And if not anything, it just puts a lot of things into perspective. And it's also, I won't say that it's also life changing to study nutrition, because it's an ever changing science. And it's like trying to solve this multivariable problem where things are changing all the time. Like you said, today something is good. Like, today coconut oil is having its moment under the sun, where even like Hollywood celebrities are drinking coconut oil, or, using it for all purposes. And who knows, like maybe 2 years down the line, they may say that it's poison. So I feel like things are changing so rapidly in this space. And also, as much research and as much knowledge people have about disease, that much research and knowledge is not done in the space of health or food or nutrition, because obviously the pharma industry is a bigger, a more moneyed giant, as compared to the nutraceutical industry is just kind of taking off right now. But until now, nutrition supplements, what people would take one B complex or something like that, and that's like crazy cheap stuff. It's not expensive, and it's just people would just buy it over the counter and be done with it. But right now, this whole wellness space is seeing a boom, and there is money being spent on research and stuff. But at the same time, not as much as like a cardiac medication or a diabetes medication, which needs much more research and studies before putting it out in the market, rather than a, like, say, vitamin B12 supplement or an omega 3 supplement, because people know that it's something that's already in your diet. It's not something very new that you are taking, right? So so taking food as medicine, I think it's been there in all ancient cultures, which we
Absolutely.
have completely lost touch with, because we just moved away from our inherent reflexes of finding the right foods for us, or eating in the right quantities, or eating when hungry, or just understanding what is good for us at different points, whether we are unwell or we are a bit tired, or uh, whatever the reasons, right? So people in those times would just understand what is good for when, and they would follow that, and they had a good life. There were no hospitals then, and of course, even the life expectancy was lower for many reasons. But all these put together, I feel like using food as a tool for our wellness, or for our better health, is the easiest, cheapest, and the most regular thing you can do, without much thought, like without spending too much money, as against buying medicines or getting admitted in a hospital or something like that. But people realize the value of health and wellness only when it's missing, not on a day-to-day basis. Like if today everything is fine with me, I don't really value that. I just take it for granted that, yeah, I'm fine. But the day we feel a bit sick is when we understand the value of being well. So I think that also needs to be driven into us to take our own health a little more seriously, and not take it so much for granted, and using nutrition as the easiest means to control our well-being and our good health.
Okay. Uh, so then, fads. What do
Yeah,
the fads that come
yeah,
and
the
go?
fads. So, of late, I think with this whole internet boom, every platform, say YouTube or now even Instagram, earlier it was restricted only to YouTube. Now this has come over to Instagram, and all these, people who are not even into science, let alone medicine, let alone nutrition. Uh, they just try to promote something because they found it somewhere. Like if a YouTube video has a few million views, then forget your studies and forget your science and forget everything else. Forget the papers written on that subject, but that video with million views is your gospel, and people will just believe it blindly without any understanding of what's happening. And I also feel like this whole space of science and nutrition is such a complex space. It has so many gray areas. There is no one size fits all, and there is no black or white and saying this is right, that is wrong. uh, so uh, for people, they do have to spend some time and effort in understanding the subject, understanding their own body, understanding what food are they eating, what is good for them. And but instead of spending that time and effort and a long term investment into this whole process, people just find it easy when they are given these very binary quick fix solutions, like this is good, that is bad, eat this, don't eat that, or this one will give you 10 kilos weight loss. So this is like, what do you say, shortcuts. And people don't want to think for themselves, and one would think that when it concerns your own life and your health, one would think that you would be more interested and more invested, but that doesn't seem to be the case. And they just want this yes or no answers, and they're just going for it. And I feel all the fads do that, and they just kind of oversimplify things to the point where it doesn't make sense anymore.
Just reacting to several things there. One of the terms that you used as well, allopathy, and the fact that allopathy was a word that was used by someone who wanted to create a difference with his, to equate his own pathy, homeopathy, with medicine. And the thing is that modern medicine is nothing but traditional wisdom that has then gone through the rigor of the scientific method. I'm not getting into big pharma and the huge amount of exploitative stuff that can happen there and how medicines are priced and all of that kind of thing. But really, it's just about interrogating wisdom and then saying, okay, what parts of this are, you know, conform with scientific method and the way that we look at our bodies and all of those kind of things and how those work. So traditional medicine, food as medicine, as you said, what the term that you used, nutraceuticals, right?
Mhm.
Something that I've been reading about a bit, and it's very true that so much of this is needs to be studied some more. You need to find out more about these. You need to understand, and the fact that the conventional wisdom changes over time is not to me an indictment. It means that we have interrogated what we know and we've come back to it and looked at it again and said, no, what we knew in the past, now we have this extra information, which lets us look at this in a different kind of way. But when we started talking about what we talk about today, we did talk about this, the long view on food fads and trends that go about. So as a doctor, uh, what is that long view really that one should be taking about
Yeah.
things?
Uh, currently the diets that are very much like you can say trending and stuff, things like keto, to the point where even restaurants, some of the restaurants in Bangalore have keto on their menu, like keto dessert and keto main course and stuff. Um, People focus on the immediate result, which is visible and which is measurable right now. And definitely keto, I'm just giving using keto as an example, and it's not my any personal angst against keto or anything, although that's one diet I can never follow in my life. I need rice, and any diet which tells me not to eat rice is not going to be a diet that I want to experiment with. So, following a keto diet definitely gives people an instant,
It's finding a diet that allows me to have carbs.
yeah, carbs, rice, same thing. So,
My
no,
personal krypton is biscuits.
yeah,
And, and I'm very proud of myself because I haven't had biscuits now for 3 months.
I read that what you said, and funnily enough, that's my nemesis as well. Like, especially with tea, I feel like I can't have tea without this. So, if I give up tea, will I give up everything else? So, back to talking about the fads. Uh, when it comes to a keto diet, the results are very much visible. The scales go down, 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 and people feel great and all that. But we also need to understand. any such fad diet or any such diet, what has been the long term study on this? How many years have people been studied for 20 years, 30 years to understand the long term implications of having such a high fat and high protein diet? And what are the implications of having such few or no carbs for so many, like over a few decades? Because, in the hope of losing weight now, say I'm in my 40s, and if I just want to lose weight now, is it going to create problems in my 60s and my 70s? So, we are so much living in the moment, which is sometimes a good thing, but not always when you are playing around with your health, because you do want to maintain health in the long run and not just lose weight temporarily and feel like you've reached your goal. And this is true for anything sustainable, what you can follow for life, and what is not going to cause you any problem in the long run. These are the few things that are good to examine before you get onto any such drastic diet. And which is why I feel like certain other things, like say intermittent fasting, or there's this other 5-2 kind of a lifestyle where 5 days a week people eat their normal food, and 2 days a week they eat a slightly restricted calorie diet, which is doable for your whole life. It's just like, it's also similar to what our ancestors used to do. And I know from my family, because I know what my great grandmother used to do, like on full moon or new moon, something like that, she would not eat one meal, like by way of a fast or something like that. And she did it all her life, and she was well and good till her late 80s. And these are the things which are not drastic, which are doable, which are flexible. And by just cutting down one meal a day, once or twice a week, I know that I'm not going to make any drastic changes to my hormone levels or my other kind of blood parameters or anything like that, which eating a very high protein or high fat diet every day, day in and day out, guaranteed it will change your blood parameters, and not everything for the good, right? So look at more sustainable options which you can follow in the long run, and which, even if there's no study done, you yourself inherently you will know that this is not going to damage my life 20 years down the line.
Mm.
So these are the things that people need to question. But a lot of times, when food is the single most important thing that goes from the external to the internal of our body, and we do this day in and day out, 3 times a day, 4 times a day. But this is the easiest thing for when you give people, like when a doctor prescribes a medicine to someone, they'll tell him, oh, this is too strong and I don't take these kind of chemicals and medicine and all. But you tell them anything about food, they are ready to eat anything taken from anywhere, change their diet at the drop of a hat, which is the most direct thing affecting your health. Forget one medicine, some random, you had some illness and you had to take one pill, which has gone through several scientific studies that it is safe for you, but people won't trust that.
Mhm.
So it's just our whole mentality needs to change a little bit towards food and nutrition, and give it that little more importance, and not play around so much with every fad and every trend and every new thing that keeps coming in.
You talked about sustainable, and I know the context of sustainable that you use the word in a long term for our own bodies kind of sense. But when we're looking at things like being vegetarian for reasons other than religion,
Yeah.
uh, vegan, being vegan, all of these things. I mean, I'm someone who grew up in eating a lot of meat. There was meat, even a little bit of it on the table right through my childhood, right? And it's only when I had a heart scare in my 40s, early 40s, that I started looking a lot more at what I put into my body.
Hmm.
A little while before that, I'd also started cutting the amount of meat that I was eating, because my family, for various reasons, my father because of cholesterol, my mother because of blood pressure, had reduced intake of red meat. And I realized that they were cooking it only for me. And then I reduced that. And to now, to the extent that I love eating meat, but I just eat it much less than I did before for reasons that are to do with thinking about animal cruelty for one, what is sustainable for our planet in the long term, but looking at things like being vegetarian or vegan, because humans are omnivorous creatures. We have evolved our digestive systems, our teeth, the way we process food, is to have a diet that is a combination of uh, different food sources. Uh, from this medical and nutrition point of view, if one is going vegan, if one is going vegetarian, what are the things that one should, and if one is used to a meat heavy diet, what should you be doing to make sure that your body gets what your body naturally wants to keep yourself healthy?
Right. So, see, a couple of important things here is that even a lot of vegetarians who say I am a vegetarian, they don't eat that much vegetables or fruits. They don't eat a variety of produce. They might just be eating like the same 4 to 5 favored vegetables and fruits. So they are not actually getting the benefit of being a vegetarian because all the micronutrients. So the macros are easy to get because it's just protein, fat, and carbohydrate. But when it comes to micronutrients, every different kind of variety of fruit, vegetable, or green leafy vegetable has a different, what do you say, spectrum of micronutrients that it offers. And we don't need to know what each one contains. But in eating a variety of stuff, like, say, nowadays a lot of us order our stuff online, and it is like the same 10 things that app will show us, you know when we open the app. It's like cabbage, cauliflower, carrot, and maybe onion, tomato, potato. Like this, I can guarantee you that the top six will be this. And in comparison, think about, like, I've grown up in Bombay, you are in Bombay, you will know that if you go to a bhaji market or a vegetable market, you are surrounded by 100 things, no less. And like the greens vendor themselves will have like 7 8 varieties of greens. There'll be like piles and piles of vegetables of all different kinds, and like even the sub kinds, like, even in pumpkin there'll be like 4 5 different varieties, and the other kind of gourds there'll be different varieties, and each one has a different micronutrient profile. And if you're looking at all kinds of things like cancer protection, keeping your gut microbiome in good shape by the prebiotics from different vegetables and fruits, uh, diabetes control, everything, all of this is dependent on the variety, and not just being a vegetarian and eating the same 2 or 3 things. Like, I eat only aloo gobi or I eat only capsicum. That's not going to help. So for anybody who is moving from a meat heavy diet to a vegan or vegetarian diet, try to include variety in everything that you eat, be it grains, be it dal or lentils, or be it beans, be it vegetables, be it fruits. Expand your knowledge of how to cook with these different kinds of fruits and vegetables and greens, etc. And don't think too much that, don't be too boxed up in this, okay, this traditional recipe is made with this, then we're getting nowhere if we are so fixated on being authentic. And just cook whatever. Like, if you're adding any Indian local greens to pasta, nobody's stopping you. And if you like pasta and you're eating if you're eating the greens with that, it's all the more better, because you're eating it with something you like, and that's more sustainable because you're more likely to eat what you like rather than forcing yourself to eat something that you don't like. And I heard this very simple but very impactful sentence in a podcast that I was listening, where every day you get 3 chances to put something good into your body. uh, and more often than not, we mess up these chances because we don't use these chances wisely. So this is one point where variety, because also when meat eaters come to vegetarianism, maybe they are not used to cooking with so many different vegetables, or they're just used to eating a few kinds of vegetables with their food. But a vegetarian like me, and I'm saying like me because, like I said, all vegetarians don't eat so many vegetables and fruits. Like I eat maybe 6, 7 types of vegetables in a day, and I don't care like what is cooked in what way. I just eat them because that is also the main part of my diet apart from grains. And by vegetables, I'm also including dals and lentils and everything. All that plus some kind of a grain, be it roti or rice or whatever it is, right? So that's one thing. The second, of course, it's easier to get your protein in the meat sources. So it's a little bit of a more planning that's required because plant-based protein, other than say tofu or paneer, does take longer to cook. So always that planning aspect of soaking things beforehand or making sure there is something in your fridge which is ready, like even if you're cooking say chana or a rajma, cook more quantity and just keep it in your fridge. So anytime, you can just add it to your dish, these cooked beans. Because also in India we are not that familiar with these canned beans and all. We don't get it as much as convenient as you get it in like all these international bloggers. They just keep making hummus in 2 minutes because they have so much canned chickpeas sitting in their kitchen, which we don't have access to. So definitely think about planning a bit. And in the initial few weeks, it's also good to have a menu plan. So you know that you are eating enough protein, you're not missing out any, important macronutrients. You're eating more whole grains. So when you make when you make a menu plan, you can see everything at a glance and understand that you are on the right track, and you don't need a nutrition expert to tell you that. And by just seeing, because the knowledge is there with all of us, because now we are bombarded with this information on all the platforms. But how to translate that knowledge into practice and make it our second nature, that will only come with regular practice and following these things on a daily basis. Things like reading labels, nutrition labels, or knowing what to shop when you go grocery shopping or vegetable shopping, looking for the different varieties, thinking about what to cook. All these become second nature once you keep practicing. So I won't say this, I'm not addressing this only to meat eaters, but also to people who are already vegetarians. But it's good to understand all this to move away from being a more very limited vegetarian to a more wider practicing vegetarian.
I mean, remember when I was looking around when I first started looking at what I should be eating more seriously, and there weren't that many resources available online in for an Indian or someone living in India about heart-friendly nutrition, for instance, and recipes. And so I would find primarily a lot of, and even when I say not Indian, primarily a lot of the sources were American. And I would be very, every time you'd go there, they would be, okay, a can of this, a can of that. And I was like, Baba, we don't get those things in cans here. How much goes into a can? I have absolutely no idea, right? And so I would have to keep messaging people who I knew in America and say, okay, how much goes into, these people are blithely referring to a can of beans. What is the average that I should be considering, right? Uh, and also, things like looking at nutrition labels, all of these can be, if you're not into it, if you don't make it a habit, it's not some, I mean, I just sort of buy things blindly because friends tell me to do it. But yes, the sheer variety of what we have available, and what, another thing that you mentioned, authenticity. What is authenticity really? I mean, it's good fun to sit and make fun of Pizza Hut's Momo Pizza. Okay. I mean, it is an abomination in certain kinds of ways, but hey, listen, the kind of pizza that we eat in India is not the pizza that Italians eat by and large, right? The kind of fried rice or noodles that we have here, whether it comes from, spaghetti and that kind of thing from the West, or whether it comes from East Asia, we've customized all those things to our taste. But I think the very important thing is realizing eating local, eating appropriately for the seasons, eating for what your genetic makeup we are not eating what our grandparents ate even, right? Because things happened along the way. Millets have become far less important in our lives, and rice and wheat have taken over. Uh, Ingredients that are comparatively recent things to come into India have become staples for us. Potatoes and chilies and tomatoes are not Indian really. But yeah, how do you absorb all of these things, bring them into your stuff, realize that you can't eat like your grandparents because you're not working like your grandparents either. If your great grandfather was, you know, someone working in the cold of the fields of Punjab, in the blazing summers and the cold winters, and if he puts down one lassi which is half malai, he's burning it off. If you're sitting in your office in Gurgaon or Whitefield or whatever it is and putting down a lassi with his half malai, you're on your way to heart disease, right? So living for our lives as well. But let's go to your book and superfoods as well. So what are these superfoods that we should, and one might say superfoods will also go through this churn of something being the flavor of a certain time, and then it sort of vanishes and no one seems to talk about it anymore. Some of that is the cycle of information that we live in. We can retain only so much, and then that place is taken over by something else. But from what you know from your study, what are superfoods?
Uh, so, this whole information overload around health and nutrition, and when it's not researched and it's not given out by people who are even students of science, or when they just tend to become these viral trends, and especially when it affects people's health, right? I thought, like, definitely I want to write a well researched book on superfoods, which focuses on superfoods which are easily available in India, which are local, which are cultivated responsibly, and they are also like affordable and less processed. So looking at superfoods from these lenses, and making sure that that's why my book is called Everyday Superfoods, because the word everyday was very important. It's not something that's so expensive that we can buy only once in a while, and it's also not something that's so restricted that you can only have it in one kind of dish. So they should be versatile enough to be, for example, beans, you can just literally make anything with them. Like millets, that you can make anything with them. And so versatile is the second thing. And so when I put together this book, I thought, because it's never going to be possible to include everything in a book, but I just wanted to give like a kickstarting place where I included 39 such superfoods which fulfill all these criteria, and talking about the health benefits, talking about the different ways that they can be eaten in our everyday diet. And all the health benefits, everything is only that's proven through studies, and not generally because I like something, I'm going to say everything cures cancer and everything will make you live 100 years longevity, and not giving such kind of drastic unverified information which is so rampant around the internet and social media. Uh, so one could say it's quite boring because I talk a lot about moderation. I talk a lot about scientific verified stuff, and not very exciting, very things, everything in superlative. And also, this is like a long term thing. There's no miracle happening here. Like, somebody eats something every day. Like, if I start eating turmeric every day for 1 week, it's not going to change my life. It's more about including these in our everyday life and throughout our life. And all these superfoods that I have picked are very much possible to eat, because they're so versatile and they're available easily. So they are all, many of them are already a part of our life. Things like tomatoes, onion, garlic, things like cabbage, cauliflower, carrots. It's also good to see them in a new light, and not take them for granted, and understand that these actually bring to you so many more health benefits than what you thought they do. So giving them a new respect and cooking a lot more with them and including them in our diet. Um, and I also go, and after talking about these 39 ingredients, I also wanted to list down, like, for different conditions, like someone is a diabetic, someone, for children, then for like good skin and hair. There are certain superfoods which are slightly better in certain micronutrients than others, so they help in these conditions. So putting that together, and then all the practical aspects of it, like menu planning. How do you now that you know what the superfoods are, you know why they are good for you, but how do you make them a part of your everyday life? It's mainly through planning, through how to shop, what are the good utensils to cook in. Like, say, we all know that iron rich vegetables are good to be cooked in a cast iron pan because it adds to the iron content. Why should we not use aluminum pans? Because a food is only as good as how you cook it. Like, if you're going to fry everything or just boil everything, uh, you're not making use of the maximum nutrients that are available in these foods. So talking about all of that, talking about the swaps, like, if you're already eating 10 different things in your week, then how do you just add a superfood to it to make it a little more nutritious? Because if you're already eating upma, then why not add like tomatoes, or why not add, say, grated amla to it? So you're already making your existing dish, you're not eating something new or different, but you're just adding something to it to make it uh, uh, give you more nutrients for whatever portions you're eating. So I've taken a very simple, practical approach, and which is what most of the people who have reviewed the book have also said, that it is approachable, and it tries to simplify this very intimidating, confusing topic, but at the same time not oversimplify and say everything is great and everything will cure cancer and everything will make you immortal, kind of thing. um, and then in the end, though this is not a cookbook, I have given like 60 recipes using all these superfoods in different combinations. So again, that's just an idea that people understand, okay, I can use it in this way also. I can use these greens for a chutney also, or I can make a pasta sauce using that vegetable which I didn't think of. So it's just like trying to get people to think out of the box and include these superfoods in a different way, and not just your usual dal, rice, or sabzi and stuff. So it make it also a bit more exciting. So that's the summary of my book, and that was the whole reason to write it. That whatever I read, whatever I hear, everything is like so binary. It's like so everything is superlative, and there was nothing taking the middle path and nothing talking about long term. So that was my whole idea.
The everyday part really is important because, I mean, I remember that, my mother went through a lot of bad health before she passed away, and dealing with diabetes, a thyroid issue, and a whole lot of other things. And she went through these various fads. And there was one, I can't even remember what it was, this juice, a berry that apparently is grown in the mountains of the north, and used by the Indian Army, etc. And I found ways to get this berry and cartons of this juice. But then I looked it up further, and I mean, A, it was expensive. B, naturally, it was not a pleasant tasting berry. So you put a lot of sugar into it to make it more palatable. And she was diabetic as well, type 2 diabetes. And how do you manage all these contradictions? And the thing of the simple, easy to use stuff, uh, that's, I think, hugely important that you bring that part of it and some idea of how to use it and adapt it and bring it into your everyday eating in ways that are appealing to you. Because, I mean, things like taste and, I mean, the dal you grew up with is home, and nothing will, I mean, you may taste better dals anywhere or better sambar or rasam anywhere else or whatever it is, but this, for better or for worse, is your reference point, and it comes with a set of emotional attachments as well. So how do you work with that? Because as we also said, the thing of what was good for our ancestors is not necessarily good for us if we're not living the same kind of lives they did, and if we have more knowledge than they did. But I'm just taking a few of the couple of questions that has come up. Anita Kumar has a question. What is your view on eating ghee?
Okay. So my view is that definitely see something that our ancestors have been eating for thousands of years. Doesn't need a white paper for validation because they have it has kept them in good stead, and and it was also eaten in a way that it's in moderation, and it was used it was not it was used in the right proportion with the right dishes, etc. And so definitely I mean, of course, unless you are vegan and you have this animal cruelty angle and you're vegan and you don't want to eat that, that's fine. But if you're okay with having ghee, then definitely like having 1 to 2 spoons a day with your dal rice or with roti or to make a paratha is not going to affect you in any way. Also, in retrospect, we realize that when you add ghee to dal and rice, so white rice has a high glycemic index, which means if you only eat white rice by itself, it will raise your blood sugar very quickly because the sugars get into your bloodstream and raises your blood sugar. But when you combine it with dal, which is a combination of a protein and a carb, uh, the combined GI of a dal and rice will be definitely less than eating white rice alone. And when you add ghee to this, the fat further reduces the GI and your blood sugar will go up much more gradually because the carbs and the sugar cannot be broken down so quickly like it is from the plain white rice. So adding ghee or adding some fat to your food has this really beneficial effect of slowing down the increase in blood sugar, making it more gradual when it rises after a meal. And it also provides satiety, which means you feel full for a longer time, that you feel happy that you've eaten a decent meal. So these are the advantages, and this is why ghee, especially in our Hindu culture, any offering made to God was always had with like a small spoon of ghee would be added to rice. Never offer plain rice. Even on a daily basis, nobody makes any fancy offerings, but it's just the plain rice and dal which is offered, especially in my house. And it's always like I've seen my grandmother do this. She'll always add like a dot of ghee to it. So I think that signifies a lot of these things that one, they think it's the purifying thing, which is also true in a way that a good ghee never gets spoiled until you don't add any water to it. It can actually stay for a very long time. And it's also said in whatever rituals that they follow, it's like said to purify any problem that may be there in the food. But also nutritionally speaking, it improves the glycemic index, it provides satiety, and of course, there are a lot of other micronutrients that you get from ghee as well. So definitely, I eat, and I don't ban people from eating. I feel it's a good thing, but of course, in moderation. Like festive time and all, eating so much ghee based sweets, because that is ghee plus sugar plus or ghee plus some fried items, all that becomes an overdose. So you have to see in what combination you're eating as well.
A friend of mine refers to ghee as a tastemaker in cuisines he doesn't like. But yeah, the whole thing of years ago, my cardiologist gave me very simple advice on my diet. He said, don't deprive yourself of anything that you like. Just remember to have it in moderation. So, I mean, what I did from there was take things like, okay, I adore cheese, and I'm going to waste my time eating processed cheese. I will get myself an expensive blue cheese or something like that and have it a little at a time. I'm lucky that I don't have a high threshold on how much I need, right? I mean, I have had like a bottle of Nutella in my fridge for 2 years because one teaspoon on a chapati once every 3 days is cool. I don't have that major sweet tooth kind of thing, So I can.
Nutella wale will be very sad to hear this.
And I just invented something that is what I call my homemade Nutella, which is ghee on a hot chapati and a little cocoa on it. And you smear that. And you may need to, I mean, if you like, sugar or jaggery or whatever as well, but a little of each of these things. But yeah, the whole thing of, and this really, really is a lovely spread.
Yeah, business or be down. But yeah, this is a good improvisation. You've done well.
I by nature am incapable of following recipes. I was talking to a friend once, a friend who has been patiently coaching me through learning how to cook in the height of lockdown and everything.
I
And
really enjoyed those posts of yours on Facebook, by the way. Like bread, eggs, and what all am I making with all this and stuff. It was really fun to read.
I called my friend and said, so today I did this improvisation. I said, Peter, everything that you do in the kitchen is improv because I never follow any of our recipes, right? Completely. I'll do some stupid stuff at some point in the way and figure out a different way to do things. So, I mean, going back to a little thing that we touched on, fusion, evolution of food, etc. I'm all for it. It's a lot of fun to sit and make jokes about these things and say it's Kalyug if someone does a tandoori chicken pizza or a Manchurian pizza. Or what was that biryani pizza? I remember.
Birizza.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that is how humanity progresses. And yes, it's good to have fights about it too.
Yes.
Yeah, connected to what you were talking about with ghee and rice and glycemic index, Vanita V asks, India, and I'd add something to that as well. Vanita's question is, what's your view on India as the diabetes capital of the world? And what is the kind of diet one should have for diabetics? And I'm also going to add to that the thing of India also has extremely high cardiac disease, right? Uh, and I suspect I know some of the answers to this, but what does the doctor say?
Uh, See, India's population is such that anything we put our heads to it, we will be the capital in the world. So similarly, if anybody had our population and the percentage of diabetics, then they would be the capital.
But I
But
think
yeah,
one usually makes this point about India is the diabetes. I mean, obviously, with India and China, do anything and you become number one because of the sheer,
yeah,
you're
force
fifth of the
of
world's population
numbers.
and 1/6 of the world's population. So yes, it will happen. But per capita and on a broad percentage basis, we do have a higher degree of
Sure.
diabetes and of heart disease than many other populations around the world.
See, definitely, you also touched upon that where, our ancestors had agrarian backgrounds and they had a certain diet which suited that background. But there are two things. One, we have continued that diet to some extent, like, having our rice and rotis and, whatever that we eat. And to add to that, we have also absorbed all the fusion food, all the world cuisines, all the different kinds of things. Like literally, you can see that the Chinese food or the pasta and pizza have also become Indian. Like we have such a absorbing culture from centuries, and that's true for food as well. So at one end, we have taken all the high carb culture from our agrarian ancestors, and we now absorbed all the other things also into our lifestyle. Like, so I'm happy like to eat a bread or something for breakfast along with eggs. Along, if you see the five-star hotel's breakfast buffet, that's the clearest indication of this problem that we are living with. There'll be like poha, vada, dosa, sambar, idli, then full other continental stuff, then ramen and congee, I mean Asian stuff, little there and muesli and American stuff, and then all the baked goods, and people will eat everything. They will not feel like I'm going to eat Indian food or I'm going to eat that. So I think one is that where we don't know where to stop. We are hanging around to our culture and continuing to take in new things all the time. And secondly, the sedentary lifestyle also plays a big role in this. Like many other countries, they have a lot of parks, outdoor spaces. They are encouraged to cycle, to walk, to play games in their free time, and a lot of Indians just don't do much of physical activity. And just walking around the house and doing some chores and cooking or cleaning a little bit doesn't really count for much. It's not really hardcore physical activity, and it's not something we are encouraged right from our childhood, where people will bunk the PT uh, lecture or PT period, and they'll keep making excuses, sir, I have a headache and all that. That's since we were children, we've said, okay, that's not important at all. And so that's the other reason, sedentary lifestyle and a combination of all the bad foods. And there are many other, like, also nowadays we don't know, there are a lot of genetic factors at play, a lot of environmental factors at play. Then there's of course stress, so many different factors. But I think diet and the food habits and a lack of exercise or a sedentary lifestyle are the main factors that lead to this problem. And regarding food, I think the most important thing is to cut down on processed food, cut down on simple carbs, focus more on, I think the most important thing, just eat more whole grains, more whole foods, closest to their natural form. Like if you have to think about eating, let's say, a packaged chivda from Haldiram versus just mixing your own kurmura and peanuts, you can understand, you don't need any degree to understand that the kurmura and peanuts is definitely the least processed thing, because other than the puffing up the rice and roasting the peanuts, there's nothing much done there. But if you check the Haldiram chivda packet, there'll be like 20 ingredients, 5 6 chemicals, 2 3 preservatives, excess sodium. So it's a no brainer to choose the food which is closest to its natural form. And it's not always possible to eat 100% natural, which is why I say closest to natural. Because, say, if you have to choose between a banana bread and a banana, it's a no brainer. Choose the banana. And so just make sure you're doing that. And I think a lot of the insulin related problems and all reduce a great deal if you are eating whole foods, if you're eating unprocessed. And also it leads to much reduced cravings. uh, Choosing natural foods automatically reduces your craving for the processed foods. That also happens. So following these few things, and of course picking up exercises that you like it could be dancing, badminton, or anything. It need not be boring gym, but doing that, and again making it a part of your everyday. You should feel like your day is not complete if you have not done that. So it should just be integrated into your lifestyle. So these are the few important things which I would recommend. And definitely keep a track of empty calories and empty like just sugars, like the cold drinks and uh, things like that, which give zero nutrition, but they are full of sugar and full of chemicals, and it's doing no good to your body. And like I also said, like, treat the 3 chances you get every day to put good things into your body, and be aware and translate that awareness into practice. So this is just true for any condition.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. The thing is that processed, packaged, every time you get something packaged, that means it's taking some time to reach you, which means that you're going to have to do something to use preservatives of some kind, uh, add flavor and taste and all of that. And so you will use a bunch of extra stuff that go in. And it's it's convenient, of course, to have packaged stuff. We live in an era where everyone's busy, not, Uh, it's a different time from our parents, our grandparents, and the way that food was prepared. I mean, people look at convenience foods and say, no, we shouldn't be using convenience food. But do remember that convenience foods help free time for women, because the burden of food preparation in our homes is primarily on women. And if you're insisting that the woman grind the masalas because your great grandmother did it on a on a stone or whatever it is not exactly fair. If you can use a mixer to do that and still grind masalas fresh and use them up, that's still, yeah. But let me take Vikas's question. Vikas T asks, what, why are the benefits of the moringa leaf not widely known? And why is it hard and sometimes and somewhat expensive to buy those leaves? I've eaten drumsticks and dal sambar for years, but only got to know about the leaves a couple of years ago.
That's a good question. And as someone who grew up in Bombay, I had no access or knowledge of moringa leaves myself. And despite being in a South Indian home, even in my home, while drumstick was used regularly, the leaves weren't used regularly. And my first brush with moringa leaves was in this, preventive and social medicine lecture that I was talking about earlier. One of our professors there was like passionate about moringa leaves, and she would bring this up in every lecture, and we would like feel like, why is she obsessed with this ingredient? And she would say that this is the most nutritious green leafy vegetable. And even if you just grow a few of these trees on the roads, even our homeless people or people living in the slums can just pick these leaves, add it to their food, and they can get a ton of nutrients from these for free without having to buy a palak or a methi or any other green leafy vegetable. And while all this was, I heard it in 2000, and now we are in 20, more than 20 years later. I remember her words now so clearly when I write about food and nutrition. And I think I even wrote about her in my book that this was the earliest introduction to moringa leaves. And I just want to read out this one thing I had written in my book, which even I found fascinating when I found this thing. According to a paper from the International Journal of Phytotherapy Research, gram for gram comparisons of Moringa oleifera leaves, fresh and dried, and other common nutritional plant sources reveal that M. oleifera, which is Moringa leaves, provide more than 7 times the vitamin C found in oranges, 10 times the vitamin A found in carrots, 17 times the calcium found in milk, 9 times the protein found in yogurt, 15 times the potassium found in bananas, and 25 times the iron found in spinach. So it's definitely one of the top nutritious green leafy vegetables, and something that we should try and eat as every day as possible. And it's also so versatile. You can make Asian stir fries, South Indian food. You can make like North Indian sabzis, combining it with other vegetables. And why is it not known? I can think of a couple of reasons. One, it's not sold so widely in the West, like Bombay and these kind of cities. It's very popular in Odisha. Like people love to use the leaves in their cuisine. It's also very well known in South India. You get this a lot. But the reason why supermarkets don't keep it is, if, when you buy it, you realize within one day all the leaves start shedding, and you will find only the stems standing around if you buy it in a bag. So these kind of the lack of shelf stability also prevents these things from being available other than your sabzi market or something. And no, it is not expensive at all. Like if you're just buying the green leaves, then it's not at all expensive. But if you're buying the processed, the dried organic powders and stuff, obviously because that goes through a certain processing and stuff, that could be a little more expensive. But the only reason why the supermarkets or online markets sell a very, very limited range of green leafy vegetables is because of shelf stability, wastage of the food waste, because they will not last for more than 1 2 days. Then they have put in the money to buy it and they can't sell it before it's not fresh. And even if it is slightly stale or like if it's not fresh, then the customer will send it back. So for these reasons, these are the stuff that you best get in markets. Or if I also encourage, if new communities are coming up, instead of putting pointless landscaping, grow some of these kind of trees which give easy access to people in the building, where they can pluck a few branches, I mean a few stems, and take it to their home. That's also something I've touched upon in my book, because a lot of new building complexes, they just put a lot of landscaping and very ridiculous imported plants, instead of which these kind of plants, useful medicinal nutritious plants, can be grown.
Yes, I was reading about very recently where various housing societies, and quite a few in Bangalore, have been starting to think about this in a different kind of way, rather than ornamental. What can I do to serve the society, the housing society that we live in? What can we plant there? And the whole concept, which people are talking about a lot more now, of food forests and things like that. I know several people who are experimenting with this, moving out into the countryside to just do this kind of thing. But how will one give? Let's say if I get my hands on some moringa leaves, how do I extend their shelf life? I live alone, and there's a limit to how much I can use. What would you suggest for me to be able to use them over a period of time? I mean, I have a refrigerator.
Sure.
Aside from that, basic.
So good question, and you're right. So these are fresh only the day it is bought. After which I said that all the leaves start falling off, even though they're still usable, but they will just fall off the stems in the fridge. So the day you buy them itself, remove the leaves, and you can you can just pressure cook them. And I learned this from my grand aunt, who's now in her 80s, but she looks like 60s. So she's through her food and her yoga and her exercise, she's kept herself so young looking. And she told me that whenever she cooks this, she adds a pinch of baking soda, because these leaves are otherwise very tough and very fibrous. So baking soda helps break it down, and it's not going to drastically cut the nutrient profile, etc. It's going to be fine, but it just helps become a bit softer and more digestible also. So just pressure cook all of the leaves, like maybe just one whistle in the pressure cooker with some water, and put this in, like, if you're going to put it in the freezer, then you can just divide it into 5 6 small boxes and put it in the freezer. So then each time you just get one portion, you can just now these are already cooked. You're anyway cooking dal or something, just dump it into your dal, or any other sabzi or anything. And if you're just going to use it from the fridge, then keep it in a bigger box, and you can use a little portion of it every day. Because then you can even add these greens to your omelette or your scrambled eggs or anything. So once it's cooked and ready to go, then you don't have to do any further process, and you can just easily add it to any dish. Like even to atta, you can make atta using these greens to make like a green paratha.
Okay.
Or you can add this to cooked rice, you can add this to dal, you can add it to eggs. So each thing, people often think, oh, meal prep, putting it in the fridge, nutrient loss, etc. But it's nutrient loss is negligible compared to the nutrient gain. So you can't always just see what is lost. And the fridge is a place, it's meant for preserving food, and it's meant for preserving nutrients to some extent. And it's not going to like immediately lose all the nutrients because you put it in the fridge. So make use of this, and it reduces food waste. It also is a more practical way of eating healthy every day, which is going to be very difficult if you start doing everything from scratch every day.
Yeah. I mean, India seems to have this sort of very,
Obsession with fresh.
that obsession with fresh,
Fridge
which
में
then
use करना.
contributes to this disastrous sort of thing of looking at a refrigerator as something that you basically use only for cold water and getting ice cubes out of, and maybe ice cream. But yeah, I mean, something
Use
like
the
this,
refrigerator.
slowing down the decay of
Yeah,
stuff by lowering the temperature. It's a simple scientific tool that's available to you.
yeah,
But the fetishization of fresh,
yeah.
which also counts on the labor of primarily
Yeah,
women.
the women.
Yeah,
If men had to do all that, then I'm sure everybody will go and sit in the refrigerator themselves.
absolutely. Yeah. The I
No,
mean,
the
this is something that
refrigerator and the microwave are not out to kill you. Let me put that out there.
absolutely. Uh, the I mean, I noticed this in a big time because, thanks to the Simple Recipes group, that which had its, I thought more men would be interested in the group because there would be people like me who sat on privilege, didn't have to learn how to cook, and now suddenly had to learn how to cook because there was no help available. But the vast majority of our membership has been women who are not, some of them are full-time homemakers, some of them were juggling a job and as well as a family. And no matter what, the common trend there was not only were you expected to do your job and also put three fresh meals on the table every day, but also deal with perhaps generational differences in what people liked and didn't like, or couldn't eat because of, say, a medical problem, or because of a dislike for a certain kind of thing. And if a chapati came out of the fridge, you would get a really cold stare. If it was warmed up in the microwave because you made the chapatis earlier and it wasn't coming off the tawa. And all of this thing to me, I'm someone who half the time just takes stuff straight up out of the fridge and eats it. But yeah, just checking in. Any more questions to everyone? And if there aren't, what I would like Nandita to do is perhaps read us a little bit from the book, a short bit to wind up with, because I'm conscious also of the fact that this is way past your bedtime. So I don't want to keep you too long.
Yes, I will do that. Okay, I'm going to read a little bit from that the chapter which is called Improving Your Relationship with Food, which is what the book starts with, examining your relationship with food and then improving your relationship with food. So this is about uh, how to invest all your five senses into the food, which makes it a more mindful eating experience. It gives more satisfaction. You feel good having eaten that plate of food. Uh, so, five senses invested in food. Reinvest your senses in the food you eat. Bond with the ingredients used to prepare the dish in front of you using your senses of touch, smell, sight, sound, and taste. Enjoy the feel of a well kneaded dough, the faintly sour aroma of a fermented idli batter, the visual beauty of a colorful fresh salad, the sharp crackle of cumin and mustard seeds spluttering for the tadka, and the taste of a perfectly sweet and sour Nagpur orange. You will start noticing these things when you apply mindfulness to cooking and eating. Being mindful enables us to make better choices, slows us down, and makes us enjoy our food wholeheartedly. Mindful eating also gives us satiety from much less as we are more conscious of our appetite and our hunger. And then I've talked about more tips on how to eat more mindfully, etc. But this is one thing that I really liked. And I also struggle to follow this in my life. It's too many distractions around, and we want to do take baby steps towards the good things.
Okay. So I'll ask one more question for now, and one that I would like, later when you have the time, if you could share any resources. This is the one for later. Any resources online that you think are valuable where people can do more reading, things that inform your viewpoints, if books, websites, whatever it is, which I could perhaps share with people who attended today, that would be nice. But for now, if someone was starting to use the internet as part of their own food journey, uh, and considering perhaps writing about food as part of it, what advice would you leave them with?
So the first part, using the internet for your food journey, always look for a trusted resource, especially more than food when it comes to nutrition and health related advice. And we saw tons of that during COVID, where literally everybody was doling out stupid, ridiculous, unsafe things to people about how to prevent COVID and do things like that. And the same applies to the space of nutrition. Please go with a trusted resource, see who has written the article, who has published the article, what are the sources quoted at the bottom of the article, and uh, from where are these people getting this information, uh, and do not randomly follow things on that come to you on WhatsApp, which is true for any other health related thing. WhatsApp is not your substitute for a doctor or a qualified person. um, so those two important things. And if you're writing if you're writing on health or nutrition, again follow the same things. Don't go for clickbait titles. Don't jump to offer these kind of very drastic solutions and say that do this and you will get this. That will get you the clicks on the internet, but that's also a lot of misleading information for gullible public. And as a health or a nutrition writer, you have a responsibility to not mislead people, to guide them to the right resources. And I think that's very important to keep a note of in the in the hunger for more website clicks and ranking, etc. Not to give people the wrong information.
Yes, yes, that entire thing of the social part of social media, it doesn't always have to be the end of your journey, doesn't always have to be becoming an influencer or becoming someone who's necessarily making a lot of money out of what you write, because if the social part is good enough, as it is for a number of other fields as well, which is, it could be anything, writing, poetry. We talked about writing before we started talking formally about how uh, so many of us reading reading is becomes less important once you're out of school and you're reading stuff, so reading stuff for pleasure and entertainment and just, so all of these things, the internet gives you so many avenues to play around. And if all you're interested in is knowing more and not necessarily translating it to other achievements, like for instance a book deal or making money off your site or anything, it's a wonderful place to be. But yes, we're almost to the minute at 11 o'clock, when I promised Nandita I would let her go and not keep her up too late because she does have an early morning tomorrow. So thank you so much for making the time for this conversation, for staying up much later than you usually do. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Peter. And yes, I managed to drink some tea and stay up, and our conversation was really fun. And you know, I've known you around for so many years. So it was nice to actually sit down and talk to you and discuss all these things. So thanks for the opportunity.
And perhaps you'll come back again to Table Talk at some other point and we can have another chat at some point. And
Definitely,
let's
definitely.
figure that out as we go along. But for
Yes,
now, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, everyone in the audience who made time and who stayed through this conversation.
indeed.
Uh,
Thanks a lot to the audience. You've stayed up. Some of you have stayed up from the start to the end, and it means a lot. Thanks a lot.
Table Talk will be back in a fortnight. I'm still finalizing my guess, but most probably we're going to be talking next fortnight about tea and all that goes into the making of tea, right? And we'll probably start a bit earlier in the evening then, because the
We should
person,
do it around tea time.
uh, that's not a bad idea, but yeah, also figuring it out, because as a person who spends her time out in the plantation during, when it's bright, and who doesn't necessarily have the time at that point to do it, but we'll figure this out. So in a fortnight we'll be talking about tea. But for now, thank you everyone for attending, and thank you, Nandita. It's been a pleasure.
Same here. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
All right, bye bye everybody.